Welcome to the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm your host, Danny Gavin, and together with industry leaders and marketing experts, we'll explore the meeting point of mentorship and marketing. We'll discover how these connections have affected careers, marketing strategies, and lives. Now get ready to get human. Hello, everyone. I'm Danny Gavin, founder of Optage, marketing professor, and the host of the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm really excited to have Pinny Gniwisch with us here today. Pinny's actually one of my mentors, and we'll talk about that in a few. But he's the president of Del Mar Jewelry. He's a globally recognized thought leader in social media and online marketing. Under his leadership as founder and executive vice president for ice.com, he revolutionized the way consumers bought jewelry, modernizing the industry in an increasingly web-focused landscape. In 2012, Pinny began consulting. He has worked with world-renowned Cirque du Soleil on their e-commerce strategy. Currently, he's working with Del Mar International to implement their B2B marketing and merchandising strategy. Today, we're going to talk about digital marketing through the years. How are you doing, Pinny?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
So just to give people background, so obviously me, 2010, finishing yeshiva, going into the industry in sort of the Orthodox Chabad world, Pinny was definitely like the guru of marketing growing up, speaking at all the different e-commerce conferences, and definitely someone who paved the way for a lot of us who came afterwards. So it's really exciting to have you on the podcast and be able to, talk and share your wisdom with everyone.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
All right, so let's talk about your background. Where did you go to school and what you studied?
So I started out in Montreal, Canada, small little place on the map. After that, I studied in Los Angeles in yeshiva. Then I transferred to the yeshiva in London. And then I went to New York to get my degree. And I was sent by the Rabbi to Sydney, Australia on Shlichus, where I went. And then after I graduated from rabbinical school, I pursued my career in digital marketing and education. So I have an MBA, and I have my master's degree in Jewish education and Israel education, and now I'm getting a degree from Harvard University in business.
Some people collect baseball cards. I guess you collect degrees, but obviously that drive for education is amazing. So let's talk about when you look back, whether it's through yeshiva or maybe some of the more recent things that you've done. Are there any experiences, both inside and outside of the classroom, that you feel like were impactful in directing your path in marketing?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would like to talk about when you talk about impact is the Rebbe's leadership in how he brought us up to become entrepreneurs. He didn't want us to be chassidim or disciples and just follow. He wanted us all to sort of plow through and create our own path. I remember when Waze started the app many, many years ago, whenever they designed their app, that a lot of the maps were created by the users. And whenever a user would go down a street that wasn't on the map, there would be this little tractor that would follow you as you pave that road and create a new road. And I thought that was like the coolest thing, Israeli thinking. But I believe that's the beauty. The beauty is that the Rebbe gave us the confidence to go up against the grain. So I remember one very impactful thing was when I was sent to Australia as an emissary. I was placed on the street, and I would have to ask people every Friday if they were Jewish and if they would like to put on tefillin, and that in itself gave me an amazing amount of confidence and innovation, because as I tested different marketing tactics to get people to say yes, and every week I would have all these different lines that I would try. I look at them today as email headlines, right? Openers to get people to say yes, or to get people not to just openly reject me for my look. And I think that was my challenge, and that was the foundation that gave me the future confidence to do things that. And I believe digital marketing was in its infancy when I started. It wasn't even we created it, and I think the only reason why we were so successful was because it was going up against the grain, and that all started from being in the street being in front of people, challenging people, and then, reworking it the next week and trying different tactics.
Yeah. And I know from my own experiences, like we don't realize the gift of going to a law office and knocking on the door and people think you're crazy. And, you know, and you ask, do you want to put on tefillin today? And like, no, I don't have time. But then coming back again the next week and trying again, and maybe the third week. And then, yeah, maybe after 12 times, they actually listen. But just that determination and that training, I mean, I don't think you get it anywhere else. Moving down to mentorship. So, Pinny, how would you define a mentor?
Someone who guides you. And I'll tell you, last night I had an experience. My new mentor, he's my coach actually. Harvard sort of gives you a coach while you're in Harvard during the 3 weeks at the program. But I became very close to my coach. It's already a year that we study a half an hour of Chassidus we study Tanya, and the other half hour he coaches me. And this is the arrangement that we created right after I left Harvard. And last night I had a question that we worked through, and he didn't tell me what to do, but he guided me to my decision. And I think the key to a mentor, a true mentor, is for them to give you the glasses to see the clarity that's out there that you in your own bubble cannot see, because we're all full of our ego and we don't always see what's right in front of us. So I think a mentor, a true mentor, is bringing out the best and challenging you to uncover the best in you, even though sometimes it's painful and sometimes the decisions are not where you wanted to go initially.
And I'm sure that relationship with that coach slash mentor, like the first half hour, in some ways you're mentoring him. And then the second half hour,
100%.
you're, yeah.
100%. And he is so thankful to me for giving him the half hour. Like he charges like $8.50 an hour. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting like this great coach because I'm giving him Chassidus. And I feel kind of, like normally when we teach Chassidus, we feel, empowered that we're sharing, this great wisdom, but we feel great that we have the ability to influence somebody else with Chassidus. And here I'm getting this reward. It's kind of a little weird, but it's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. So let's talk about your father. So you've mentioned that he is one of your most influential mentors. Obviously, he is just a remarkable man. So much wisdom, so much youthfulness. Let's talk about him.
So my father is a Holocaust survivor. He grew up as an orphan, came to America, had nothing. I love this story, which I tell over all the time, where when he was dating my mother, he came to the date with a shirt that had an insignia on it, initials that were engraved in the shirt. And my mom was super impressed with the fact that he had a shirt. But when she looked closely, she saw that it wasn't his initials. So she questioned him. And, in his boldness and his humility, he said, well, I'm so poor that I have no clothing. So when one of my jobs I do is I clean dead bodies after. It's a little morbid, but I clean the bodies. And the wives of the people that have passed away, they leave the shirts of the clothing as a donation to the yeshiva. So I get first dibs. So therefore I'm wearing somebody else's shirt. And all my shirts are that. So I think that humility that my father had, having come from such poverty into the success that he has, and to stay grounded in his humility and wisdom, that I think is the greatest quality that I try to instill in myself. Where, whatever successes that I have had or will have, that I try to stay grounded and remind myself of my father's growth and where he is today. And I remember that Passover last year, we were sitting together at the Seder with the whole family, and he just started to cry. He was just sitting there looking at the table. And I'm like, Ta, what's going on? Why are you crying? And he says, this is not tears of sadness. This is tears of joy. He says, I came to this country. I remember walking on the plank to go on the boat. And I thought I was the most lonely person, the only person in the world, no one there. I had nobody. And I was coming to a new world, and look at what I've created, you know, children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, all surrounding me at the Seder. And for me, that was like a moment. It was a moment to see true, deep joy that led to the crying, the tears of joy. So for me, he is the greatest person in the world. He's humble, smart. He has a great sense of humor, and he's always, always learning. He never stops. Last week, he came over to me and he's like, we bought the membership for ChatGPT. Why isn't everybody using it? And to hear an 84-year-old man talk about ChatGPT, it's inspirational. It's exciting.
So I've spoken to your children before, and I know a big part of their education is the fact that you making such an effort, like by your Shabbos table, inviting guests and for bringing and like interacting with people. And I know that, well, I don't know, but I can envision growing up in your house. That was amazing. How was it growing up at your parents' Shabbos table? Was it similar? Is it something that you gained from your mother and father?
There's no question. And we had always had guests and have guests. My parents built a home most recently that is a bedroom and a dining room. That's the whole house. The bedroom is upstairs, and the house seats 250 people, the dining room.
Wow.
And that's the home. So you can get an idea of what kind of hachnasas orchim and what kind of guests. I mean, the whole purpose of their existence is to give and to have guests and to invite guests and to make them feel at home. And just 3 weeks ago, we had a guest in their home that came to sleep. But the beauty of it was that he felt comfortable enough to bring another guest. And the other guest was surprised when he arrived because he felt so weird that the guest was inviting him, and he didn't even anticipate how my parents would receive him as being one of the guests. And he was nervous the whole 8-hour drive he was coming. Like, okay, the guest invited me. What is it going to be? And he had the most beautiful Shabbos. So yes, seeing it in my parents' home inspired me, and hopefully my children are going to be inspired to be the same. Where the whole purpose of having whatever wealth you have is to share it and make somebody else feel as comfortable as you in your own home.
Love it. So pivoting to how you mentor others. So obviously you've mentored a lot of people, whether that's directly, indirectly, people in your company, youth that you've also been involved in. So what are your keys to mentoring success and how you mentor others?
I have a few people that I mentor, and it's some of them officially, some of them unofficially. I think the key metric, as I mentioned before, is for them to have their own realization, not to give them the answers, because the work is important, and that them realizing the direction they need to go or the decision they need to make needs to come from them. I think that's number one in mentoring. It's the art of the pause. There's a book out there on coaching. I can't remember the name now, but it's a fantastic book where the whole book is based on the pause. It's not jumping to the answer, but allowing them to find the answer. Another thing is trying to give them examples of my own life. I think a lot of times mentors use stories from other people, and that's super important. But I've had many experiences in life, and those experiences have given me the ability to wade through dark times and difficult decisions, and using my own experiences to guide them is super important because they can relate to it's not a story. It's not one step removed. It's for me. So I always try to find something in my own life that they can relate to, that has happened to me. And I'm always thinking when things are happening, how I can use that in my mentoring sessions. Right. So just the other day, I always look at opportunities that happen and see how I can take that opportunity to the next level. Right. So a lot of people have opportunities where they see the opportunity and they don't look at it. They don't see it as an opportunity and they just walk straight by. So the other day I see this. I was in Miami yesterday at a jewelry show. There was an elderly gentleman who sees me, and I walked by him and I said hello. and I saw that because I was wearing a yarmulke, he wanted to tell me something, right? I saw that. So normally, if you don't see that, you would have walked by, hello, goodbye, nothing. And that stop and that pause of me asking him how he's doing, what's his experience in the industry. And then he went on to tell me this extraordinary story that happened to him that was so mind boggling. And he was so excited to tell me. And he just came back to me later. And every morning after that, he stopped by my booth. But the point is that when we walk by that situation and we don't see the person's eyes, and we don't read the situation, we don't see the opportunity, we lose the opportunity to have a great experience. And I think in general, that's been my motto in life. And people say, how do you have so many stories? Or how do you, for me, it's all about seizing the opportunity and not walking away. And the funny thing is that I was working all day and I went to a wedding and I came back. I walked by a table at the bar towards my room, and there were 4 guys sitting there. One of them saw me walk by and they said, Happy New Year. And I said, Happy New Year. And I gave them a blessing, but I was so zonked that I went to sleep. And then I realized, that's what happens to the average person, right? The average person did what I did and went to bed. And the next morning, I felt so terrible because it could have been another story, right? And I was thinking at that moment, in the morning, I woke up and I said, that's what happens to everybody else. And for me, that was a perfect moment, to catch myself. No, don't ever do that again.
Right. And, it's kind of the story of Zusha, but like Pinny, you got to be Pinny, right? You don't lose who you are. I mean, I don't know if you remember this story, but we were at IRC in Chicago once. I think you were going for dinner with Steven Spencer and like with another guy. And I think I was just around like, Danny, come with me. And like we hop into the Uber, we go. It was like the most wonderful experience. And naturally, I would have just gone to my room, maybe ordered some food, but like, it's just so cool how you grab those opportunities. And I've been a part of it. It's very magical. Yeah, it is so cool. Don't lose that.
I guess as you get older, you gotta
pace yourself, right?
There you go.
So let's move into all things digital marketing. So kind of turning the clock back, you founded Postmaster Corp in 1993. And the next 10 years, you helped build this business that worked with developing countries' postal organizations. How is it working with so many different countries, regions, and cultures around the world?
Oh my gosh. We work primarily with the Caribbean and Western Africa. I tell you one thing. First of all, culturally, it was the most eye-opening education I ever got, dealing with each country individually and learning the customs of what is proper and what isn't, etiquette. And then there was just stuff like, language barriers and religious barriers, like a lot of these countries in the Caribbean, the people are extremely religious and very respectful of your religion. I remember, the Postmaster General of Barbados was so respectful and made sure I had kosher food and always asked me if I needed anything, and that was in Trinidad as well. So the culture sort of clash coming from ghetto, coming from my small Orthodox community, and being open. And it was right after I got married, so being open to this whole world. The world. It was amazing, and traveling to all these countries and dealing. And I think one of the biggest challenges was that as you build relationships with the Postmaster General, there would be a coup, and a new government would come in, and you would call up and you'd be like where is where's Basil Reese? Oh, he was killed in the last administration.
Oh my God!
So for me, that was like so mind-boggling to the changeovers and the violence in some of these countries, and then also just it was very weird, and it was before the internet, so communication was difficult. Having to travel to third world countries. I remember one time I went to Cote d'Ivoire, which is a country in Western Africa. We get to the airport and I'm about to leave. And the security guard, two guys with machine guns stopped me, and they're like, do you have any currency to declare? And I'm like, yeah. And his eyes light up, and he says, show me. And he's talking in French, and my French is not great, but so I take out the money, he starts counting it, and the plane is leaving, and I'm stressed and everything. And then, like, he takes my passport, and I'm getting nervous, and I'm starting to get agitated. And the guy next behind me says, hey, you better relax. Don't get so agitated because they'll keep you here. After a while, he says, you have to pay whatever excess. And I pay. And then he says, pour moi. What about for me? And so I give him, one, two, three. And after I finish, I give him $500. He gives me my passport back. He smiles and lets me go. So there was all these different experiences that were insane.
So your time span there bridged the gap from regular snail mail, commerce and communications to the world of email and e-commerce. How was it watching the evolution of global communication in such a way?
Well, the beauty was that we were in the cusp of in 1999, the internet was maybe 3 years old, and the e-commerce was just starting to pick up. It was super, super exciting because the rules weren't written. Everybody was starting at the same point. If I would have went into traditional marketing, I would have had to had a good degree. I would have had to go to school. I would have had to follow the path of everybody else, which was that path where, you go, and there's a linear path where you need to just go from here to there, to there, to there. And when we started digital marketing, I was there in the beginning. So if I was as smart as everybody else, I can succeed. And being that I had my yeshiva background, where the brain was seasoned for challenge, and we created the rules. So just like someone who was working for any other e-commerce company who didn't know how to use digital marketing, I could be just like them, do the same tests, and come out with the same results, and using my seichel, coming out with better results. And that I felt I was the luckiest person in the world to be there at that moment, to be able to start with everybody else. And because of my innovative mind and the brothers that were giving me the support that I had in founding that in our company, ice.com, we were able to leapfrog ahead of everybody else because we were entrepreneurs, we were innovators, and we had the opportunity to be there when innovation was happening. And that I'm super thankful for.
So with founding ice.com in 1999 and like kind of going back there, what sort of logistical setup was involved back then, like with an e-commerce company?
It was insane because, today, if you want to start a company, you go to Shopify, you start your company, and you build your website. In 15 minutes, you have everything up. In those days, the initial costs of setting up a website were in the millions. I remember we wanted to rebrand our company, and we needed to rebuild our website, and it was $500,000 in those days. And thank God we had VC money that we were able to afford it. But the whole infrastructure was not there. So everything from distribution to e-commerce, website to marketing to software to manage marketing. And I mean, everything we managed in those days was on Excel. So if we had a campaign, we would put it into Excel, and then we would have to optimize the campaign in Excel. There was no HubSpot. There was no, back end of Facebook. Even Google AdWords wasn't there when we started. We had the company that did it was the company that invested in us, Idea Lab, that created the first cost per click campaigns, and managing that was a cumbersome thing. And today, I feel sort of jealous from anybody starting an e-commerce company, but the beauty that we had was that we were able to make mistakes and create the rules, and that I'm very proud of and excited for. To be there at that time.
So you've mentioned one of your goals, and I believe successfully achieved, was to brand ice.com as everyday jewelry. What sort of market research did you do to help determine how to best make that positioning move?
So we went to Chicago, and we had focus groups. Today you can do it online. When we started, the capabilities to do it online weren't there. And we sat with a group of 100 women to ask them what they were looking for in an online jewelry company or in any jewelry company. We had a series of questions, and then we reformatted the questions. As we got more granular into understanding what that customer was looking for online, from features to navigation, to what things were extremely important to them while searching for jewelry, what kind of designs. And we took that information, we crunched whatever information we got based on the questions. And then we went to the drawing board and we designed the brand around that after the brand already was doing business. So, rebranding, the logo, the site, the features on the site, the shopping cart. One of the things that came out from there was, today, the buy now, pay later companies, like, all the guys that are out there, from Square to Afterpay. So Afterpay was founded by a guy who worked for ICE.com. He ran ICE.com in Australia, and we started the 5-payment process. And he got the idea from working there. So, I'm not going to say he got the idea from there, but that's where he worked. And we were one of the few companies that had the 5-payment. And that was one of the things we got out of the focus group when we asked them, purchasing such a large, what things can we do to alleviate your stress, to buy, the 30-day money back guarantee, and the 5-payment was very important to them.
So cool. And just to have that, number one, listening to people, but then having the insight to actually implement it. And now that's like normal, but it's so cool that you actually were one of the first to do that. At various businesses you founded, worked with, or consulted, you've helped increase revenue and shift target markets and audiences. How do you approach picking the right platform, media type, budget for any given audience?
I think the key is, first of all, to understand the audience, right? Where are they at? I remember a great mashal by the Dubna Magid, where someone is looking for his keys under a lamp in the old shtetl, and the Dubna Magid, somebody asks him, "Where did you lose your keys?" He says, "I lost them there." And he says, "Why are you looking here?" He says, "Because here's where the lamp is, right? This is where the light is." But that doesn't mean you're going to find them here, right? So because everybody's running to certain platforms, the problem is that people tend to go to the platforms that are the most spoken about or have the most buzz surrounding them. But if your target customer is not there, then you're wasting your time. So I think the first thing is to understand who your target customer is. Then knowing where do they hang out. So if your target customer hangs out on Snap versus on Facebook versus on Insta, then you got to go to Snap. If your target customer is on TikTok, then you got to go to TikTok. And then in the platform that you do choose, then you need to find the content that platform responds to. So if it's short reels or versus stories versus, pins, then, you need to create the content. But just by saying, "Oh, I'm going to create content for social media," and then having HubSpot post it to all your platforms, and not speaking the language of that specific platform, then you're missing out on the point. So again, it's finding the right place where you can amplify your message to your customers and using the right content that fits that platform.
So now at Delmar, you help Fortune 1000 businesses develop online jewelry businesses. When someone comes to you with the hope of starting a business like this, what's your first step in getting them started?
I think the first step for us is optimizing their website, right? So a lot of jewelers that come to us are on archaic platforms. Their sites are stale when it comes to the pictures, and the navigation is awful. And the shopping cart is generally very basic. And when you're buying such an exquisite item as jewelry online, you need to give that aura of elegance, luxury, and aspiration, right? You're buying something that people are aspiring. They want to have a certain feeling. And if your website is dead, then no one's going to buy. So that's number one. Number two, I insist that they have tracking on their website, right? So Google Analytics or whatever other analytics they want to use, they need to have that. So a lot of times I'll have our customers come to me and say, hey, we have too many items online. We want to pare down our product catalog. And I'm like, 100% the paradox of choice, too many products. Great book, by the way, Paradox of Choice, professor in, I think, the University of Chicago, Schwartz. So he wrote this book, and it's a great book. So yes, the endless aisle was what everybody thought about in the beginning of the web. Today, having thousands of pages of product is not good. I think, in my opinion, there's a combination of analytics to find the right product, and then merchandising to have the human touch. As you combine both of them together, you'll get the perfect product mix. But when we get the question, hey, we need to pare down and we need to siphon off some of your products, I always ask the vendor, can you tell me how many views this product got and how many clicks this product got before you remove it from the website? And they don't know the answer to that. Oh, it hasn't gotten a sale in 6 months. That is not, right? That is not one of the KPIs, right? You can't use that KPI if nobody saw the product. Oh, well, if nobody saw the product, no one searched for it. No, half of your viewers are coming to the website and using, right, your navigation to get to the page. Some of them are using the search box, but a lot of them are going to the navigation and past the third page. They're not going. So the question is, did they ever see this product? You worked really hard to upload this product onto your website, and now you're just going to delete the product without any investigation. Did anybody see the product? So the third thing I say to my clients is, do you have analytics to tell me, are these products working or not, and why? And then we go into the whole marketing. So we ask them, what kind of banners are you using? We can supply you, if you like, with branded banners that fit your color scheme and all your branding, the font that you use and all that. We'll supply that to you. And we'll supply you any type of reels or education you need to get the customer over the hump and get them to buy.
As you've seen marketing in general, especially digital marketing, change over the years, is there anything you miss about the good old days before PPC and social media advertising?
I miss the creative aspect of it. There was a time when we would put a lot of emphasis on the creativity of the ads. And today, with AI, you can utilize tools that do it for you. So you can have A/B test managed by AI and optimizing the words and optimizing the creative and doing all that for you. So that I miss a little bit, even though the optimization is so much greater and the results are so much greater and they're happening so quickly in real time, which is mind boggling. And digital marketers might be out of a job one day. I don't know. But yeah, that side of it I miss. I miss the power of the banner ad, right? Today, banner ads don't get any respect. They're utilized in very different ways. And I always love the ability to use those for not only for branding, but for a CPA model. And I think today the banner ad is even more ignored than before. In the early days, that was the only thing that was there. So for me, I'm a little nostalgic to that.
Do you have an anecdote or favorite digital ad experience, either as a marketer or as a consumer, that you can think about?
We had an ad. I remember we bought the front page of MSN. In the olden days, MSN was one of the number one websites. They were getting the most traffic. And we spent about $150,000 in one day on one ad, on 24-hour ad. And when we booked the ad, we didn't realize that the ad was being served on Yom Kippur. The ad was for a very specific bracelet that had an extremely high perceived value. It was 25 carats of sapphires, traded sapphires. And I remember clearly that after the event, Yom Kippur was over and I had 100 missed calls. It was from my digital, the person who ran our website, non-Jewish. And he was calling me a whole Yom Kippur, not knowing that on a random Tuesday, it was Yom Kippur and we couldn't answer the call. So when I come back on Yom Kippur, we go into the back end and we see that we did over $1 million in sales in one day. And in those days, that was crazy. And the crazy thing was that at a certain point, the inventory ran out. I think at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's why you kept on calling us, because there was no inventory. So that was a very unique experience, and it was an exciting day. It could have been much greater, but the point is that look at when you're advertising and make sure that you can somewhat anticipate what you need and how the response. We didn't know what the response. It was our first time. We weren't that much guilty of that. We did have $1 million of one item, so that's a lot to invest in.
You've been a founder, co-founder, consultant, producer, marketing expert, speaker, and a teacher, not to mention a family man. Of all those titles and roles, is there one you find most exciting? Not necessarily the most fun or most rewarding, but the one that's got the most energy to offer.
Well, if you would ask me this question while I was still teaching at McGill, I would have told you teaching. I just found, I was teaching at McGill for 10 years, and I found that as the time went on, the students became less and less interested or engaged. And that's why I stopped teaching. I found a lot of people came to the courses for the glitziness of the course. And in the beginning, I had like real digital marketers that today are running big companies in Canada. They're based on the course that they've taken. And later on, people took the course because it was part of a whole. They were becoming something, and they needed to take the course. And I remember very clearly seeing you with your earphones. I remember the last year I taught, one of the students came into class and was wearing a pair of those earphones and sat right in front of me, looking at his computer, watching a movie. And I was like, okay, I'm done. And it wasn't like he knew if I was a good professor or not, right? It was the first class, and he didn't know any. He just sat down, and then that's when I said, okay. So for me, teaching was extremely powerful. The response, the energy, the creativity that the students had, what they taught me, the projects that they did that I had in class was extremely exciting for me. I have to say that towards the end, I was getting burnt out based on the interest of the students. And I think the most important thing as a teacher is to have the engagement of the student. And sometimes it could be on the teacher, but I saw 7 good years. So maybe I became disinterested, and maybe it was them, or maybe both. But I lost that energy. But the energy in the classroom for me, getting up on stage as a speaker at a conference was just, for me as someone who has ADHD, the dopamine hit that I would get was very, very powerful and exciting and energizing for me personally. But today, I have to say, being a grandfather is something that is the most special thing for me. Just hearing the word Zadie from a little squeaky voice, there is nothing greater in the world than that. So from all my accomplishments, just a little 2-year-old can just totally dwarf anything that I've ever done.
I love that. And I think it's so important for others to realize that at each stage of your life, right, different things are going to make you tick. And that's okay, right? And it's okay if it changes and morphs. And I think it's a positive thing overall.
100%.
So typically we do a lightning round, but you mentioned ADHD. Why don't we talk about that, in conclusion of our conversation here today, but like the power of ADHD, something that you've had to deal with throughout your life. Love if you could elaborate a little bit.
So I was once flying to speak in Singapore at a digital conference, and next to me there was a woman sitting, and I ordered a Diet Coke, and she said to me, "What are you doing?" So I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Do you know what's in that Coke?" And I'm like, and she gave me, it was a long flight, so she gave me a whole lesson, and I was like, and then she kept on asking me questions, and what do I do, and what do I do, and what do I do, and then after, telling her I run a nonprofit for children, and I teach at McGill, and I run marketing for ice.com, and I'm a father, and and I'm studying to get a master's in Jewish education. So she said to me, you should get yourself diagnosed for ADHD.
Really?
And yeah, that's what she said to me. She said, I've done a lot of studies on it, and you're a perfect candidate. So, I knew growing up, being in school, I was not, they didn't diagnose me then, but I was out of school most of my life in the principal's office, to the extent that there was a chair in the principal's office that had my name on it, like, one of the director chairs, right? So I knew there was a problem there growing up in the 70s. They didn't diagnose you with anything. They just sent you to the principal's office and gave you the cane. Your parents can talk to that, being South African. So we had that in Montreal. When it comes to ADHD, I came back and I went to the Montreal General Hospital, and I signed up for an adult ADHD. They did this whole program where they were doing testing on adults. So first they had to diagnose me, and it took 3 months, and I went through a bunch of tests, and they diagnosed me, and then they put me through this program. They had 3 different cohorts, one that worked with therapy, one that took a placebo, and one that took, not Ritalin, but one of the drugs. So I went through that for 6 months. And, I remember the day when I received the letter saying that, hey, you've been diagnosed with ADHD. And, for some people that would have been like horrific. And for me, it was like, yes, finally, I know why. And then I started doing, all this reading on ADHD, adult ADHD, all kinds of, and I have like a whole library shelf of books on ADHD. And my son, who you know quite well, was diagnosed with ADHD, and he went through his own journey with that. But for me, finding out the diagnosis and then using the tools that all the professionals tell you to use was so powerful for me in my own life, and has changed my life, right? I always had all these tools that I didn't know that I had. So when it came to reading books, when the Amazon Kindle came out, I would read them on the Kindle, and it was the only time I can finish a book. Because, and then I realized that people with ADHD start projects and never finish them, right? But because it was on the Kindle, I didn't know how big the book was. So it didn't stress me out. Starting a project and not finishing it gave me the ability to surround myself with people who finish projects, people who I thought or I think are boring people, but they're my anchor, right? So I'm the inspiration, and they run with it, and I'm fine with that. And it took me a long time with my coach to come to the realization that being the spark and not the logs and not the fire is all right, because you can beat yourself up, and people around you can beat you up for not completing tasks. But I'm fine with that, right? I have designed my life to have people around me who don't judge me, who understand where I'm at, and they kick in. And thank God I'm at the stage where I can afford to have those people around me, and that's a blessing. But coming to the realization that that's who you are, and accepting that fault. But then there's the upside. I'm the most creative person in the room, and that's what I embrace. I'm the guy who comes up with the new ideas. I'm the guy who does this and that. So I don't do that. I'm fine with that. That's what Navika does. That's what Sarah does. That's what whoever does in my team. And that letter gave me the calmness and the excitement to continue in being creative and doing what I do well.
Pinny, this really has been the most wonderful conversation. As always, your stories are just wonderful, and really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Digital Marketing Mentor. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into the Digital Marketing Mentor. We will talk with you next time.
Thank you for having me, and have a fantastic Shabbos, and send regards.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Mentor podcast. Be sure to check us out online at thedmmentor.com and at the DM Mentor on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more Marketing Mentor magic. See you next time.